Okay, I'm back at the I'm Still Alive, the FBI have caught me. So let's continue what I was talking about Henry Kissinger as a monster. In this case, we will focus exclusively in South America, mainly Chile and Argentina. But this time, we gotta talk about Central America, continue from the article Kissinger, Central America by the Jet magazine. On the what he was doing, and especially Guatemala and Nicaragua and Honduras and other similar countries. Under the U.S. President Jimmy Carter, USA Central America dropped historic laws. Assistance to Guatemala was cut off over human rights concerns, and military aid to El Salvador was also restricted. In 1979, however, things changed. After the October coup, ousted president who had been elected 2 years earlier in full, broadly denounced as fraudulent. Carter restored a non-lethal military assistance to El Salvador. The administration hoped that the new centrist junta would achieve a ace in El Salvador and the United States have it in Nicaragua, namely temporary revolutionary aspiration and installing modesty reforms. And remember, before that, they were supporting fascists. During World War II, America was supporting Nazis and fascists in Latin America, while at the same time fighting the Nazis in German Nazis. I'm just saying. If the U.S. friendly bourgeois democracy by several candidate elites forcibly opposed the junta's land for more reform proposals, and the government civilian members were soon forced out. In February 1980, San Salvador Archbishop Oscar Romero wrote to President Carter asking him, and I quote, to forbid that military aid be given to the Salvadorian government and to guarantee that his government will not turn directly or indirectly with military, economic, diplomatic, or other pressure in deterring the destiny of the Salvadorian people. End quote. Carter never replied, and Romo was assassinated 5 weeks later, gunned down by U.S.-backed paramilitary forces while celebrating Mass. Following the gruesome murders of four North American churchwomen in December, assistance to the country was briefly suspected, but the Carter administration quickly resumed its support, including lethal military aid after the FMLN launched a major offensive in January 1981. By 1983, however, Reagan had tripled U.S. aid to the Isthmus, support the Nicaraguan, and severely saved the destined-for opposition group, while aid to Guatemala was restored. From next to nothing in the late 1970s, military aid levels soared. Fresh from Vietnam's humiliation, the neocons were sure that Central America would provide a decisive victory over America needed to reassert its prowess. But again, were illusionary. The SSLN held firm to power despite North America's sponsorship of a convert insurgent war against the Sandinistas, was largely from Honduras, which became so overrun by the U.S. military that it was referred to as the USS Honduras. Meanwhile, the Guatemalan state was waging a genocidal war against rural indigenous communities, and the Salvadorian military and its associated death squads would draw international condemnation for the flagrant disregard for civilian life. John Didier wrote in 1992 that, I quote, the American effort in El Salvador seemed based on auto-suggestion, a dream was devised to obscure any intelligence that might trouble the dream, end quote. With this policy under fire and reflection campaign looming in 1983, Reagan convened the National Partisan Commission on Central America. The president hoped the commission would legitimize his administration's ongoing activities in its isthmus in the face of significant opposition in Congress and in the street. To say nothing of the international community, he appointed Henry Kissinger as the chair. For Kissinger, as Greg Grandi writes in his autobiography, and I quote, America's most controversial statesman, end quote, and the new role gave him, and again I quote, the chance to establish his credibility and reconciliation with the right, end quote. At the Reagan himself led the charge in lambasting diplomatic and trademark strategy of the as responsible for the United States' recent failure on the world stage, both moral and militarily. Prepared to prove himself to the neocons, Kissinger was to agree that Central America was just a place to regain ground on both accounts. As evidence mounted upon human rights violation by the government that Reagan champions as Central America's warrior for democracy, Kissinger commissioned him to convince Congress to keep the arms trading and cash coming without the necessary funds. Warned the great communicator in the July 1983 speech announcing the commission that, I quote, there's no way for us to prevent the light of freedom from being extinguished in South in Central America, end quote. In the report, Kissinger provided a 12-man team, which included a handful of politicians from both sides of the aisles, a couple of academics, business, and military men. The president of the AFL-CIO, the group included no Central Americans or women, for that matter. The only woman named to be Grace Commissioner was the notorious neocon ideologue Jean Verpettegren, who served as senior counselor to the commission. After a month and a half of meetings, including a whirlwind 9-day tour of Central America, Mexico, and Venezuela, the group published its findings in January 1984. Kissinger's greatest challenge was to portray local revolutionary movements as foreign conspiracies more alien to the United States' own interventions. Even as the report acknowledged that authoritarian violence and repression wrought by ruling elites had systematically foreclosed the possibility of democratic reforms. It thoroughly disqualified the insurgency and radical opposition movements fighting for dignity. Equally, equality and self-determination as outside intrusion. As journalist Ben Fernandez has observed, the Commission at times even appeared to suggest that Cuba is not in fact located within the hemisphere, but rather in some Soviet hinterland. In this report, the Commission desperately reiterated this torture logic, and I quote, "We have stretched before and we repeat it here. Indigenous reform movement, even indigenous revolution, were not themselves as security concerns of the United States. What gives the current situation a special urgency is the external threat posed by the Sandinista regime in Nicaragua, which is supported by massive Cuban military strength, backed by Soviet and other Eastern Bloc weapons, guidance and diplomacy, and integrated into the Cuban network of intelligence subversion." The argument was not particularly convincing. A review in Foreign Affairs found that commissions never successfully resolved the tension between U.S. security interests in the area and a minute need for radical change in many Central American societies. As policy is currently conceived, in order to fight the intrusion of foreign aggressors, the United States must depend on precisely those forces that have always stood in the ways of significant indigenous revolution, thus eventually forcing the advocates of radical change to rely for support of Cuban or Soviet backing. El Salvador, particularly preoccupied the Reagan administration reports of the regime's atrocity, has sparked widespread public outcry. In 1981, France and Mexico officially recognized the insurgency as a legitimate and representative political force. Reagan and his colleagues saw the tiny country as a crucial battleground. The FMLN victory would involve the Sandinistas and by extension the Cubans and by extension the Soviets, setting a chain reaction of victories that would sweep northward towards the U.S. border. The insurgency's defeat, in turn, would cement U.S. hegemony in Central America. As key part, Kissinger's task was to convey the magnitude of this threat to Congress. Against all evidence, Kissinger reports strained to equate the scope of Salvadorian state violence with that of the opposition. Both traditional death squads and murderous guerrillas have attacked political parties, labor and peasant leaders, working to establish a consolidated democratic institution. He claimed assuring readers that both violent groups are morally and politically repugnant to this commission. The report suggests that curbing the insurgents' violence in El Salvador required in part cutting them off from their resources of foreign support. But the Salvadorian military understood all too well that the guerrilla principal bastion support was domestic. Already, the generals were using their U.S. armed intelligence and trying to deploy a strategy of draining the sea to kill the fish, deliberately targeting civilian communities with terror, mass extermination, and despite this was also a counter-insurgency strategy employed by the Guatemalan counterparts under the leadership of the war criminal like Efrain Rios Montt, who the commission fondly referred to as the Maverick General. In reality, it was US aid that perpetuated the violence in El Salvador. The worst possible possibility for El Salvador is to provide such enough aid to keep the war going, but too little to wedge it successfully. Kissinger argued, claiming that more support will eventually improve the dismal human rights situation. A vicious cycle resulted in which violence and denied human rights spawned reduction in aid, and reluctant aid made it more difficult to pursue enlightened counterinsurgency efforts. The report did recommend conditions that increasingly ameliorate aid on progress on the effort to bring death squads under control. However, in the final notes, Kissinger joined two other commissioners in expressing their strong view that neither Congress nor the executive branch interpret conditionally in a manner that leads to a Marxist-Leninist victory in El Salvador, thereby damaging vital American interests and risking a large war. Similarly, the Commission observed that military aid to Guatemala currently suspended could become necessary and should authorize under the appropriate conditions. Kissinger also called for increased military aid to Honduras. His commission declined to officially opine in favor or against aiding the Contras, as the Nicaraguan counter-revolutionaries were known, but note that, and I quote, the majority of the members of the commission, to respect the individual judgment, believe that the efforts of the Nicaraguan researcher represent one of the incisive work in favor of negotiating settlements and that the future role of the United States in these efforts must therefore be considered in the context of negotiating processes. End quote. As the United States was probably a homicidal military regime in the name of starving on communism, it was also striving to implement a particularly ruthless breed of capitalism in the region. Kissinger was no stranger to either endeavor. As Secretary of State under Nixon, he supported the Chilean right-wing military coup against Allende and encouraged the newly installed dictatorship to liberate the economy according to the recepts of free market fundamentalist Milton Friedman. all while engaged in mass execution, disappearance, and torture. When neoliberals militarized laboratory shift from South to Central America, Kissinger duly followed. Though couched in the language of development, the Commission economic recommendations serve the same agenda. What is now required is a full commitment by the Central American country to an economic policy, include reforms in tax system to encourage private enterprise and individual initiatives to create favorable investment climates. The report endorsed characteristically the Commission declared that U.S. corporations acting in the region have particular responsibility to provide leadership and create safe and healthy working conditions as well as introduce appropriate standards of environmental pollution control in their own operation, but suggest no measures to enforce such duties. In a 130-page document displayed a brass disregard for history, a Kissinger's signature if there ever was one. Perhaps it read, over the year we should have interfered less, or interfered more, or interfered differently, but all these are questions what might have been. What confronts us now is question what have become, whether it's rules in the past and the crisis Central America is urgent in the present, or successful resolution is vital to the future. Of course, such disdain for the last of the past was necessary to justify the Commission's call for more of the same failed politics. And Walter Labor wrote that report, and I quote, combined ideas from Reagan's military policy, Kennedy's Alliance for Progress, and Eisenhower's use of the CIA, end quote. All told, the Commission recommend $8 billion in development aid and $400 million in military aid to Central America over the next 5 years. Congress balked at the enormity of the sum. Rabid anti-communist Jesse Helms, chair of the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee of the Foreign Relations Committee at the time, declared that, I quote, the report is a mandate for socialism, financed by the U.S. taxpayers, end quote. Nonetheless, Kissinger did succeed in garnering support for the significant increase. From 1984 to 87, aid to Central America could speak the Salvadorian government, in particular, benefited from Kissinger's persuasive talents. In 1988, Congressional Research Service around found that they still report, and I quote again, the base for congressional support for U.S. economic and military assistance, well Salvador seemed to have written, end quote. Oil and aid to the country, which reached its high in 1985 with nearly $700 million, made up nearly half of all of the aid to the region. Guatemala was also rewarded, becoming Central America's second largest recipient by 1988. The increase, however, had little civilizing effects on the Central American militaries, nor did it bring swift and decisive end to region's conflict. Despite the Iran-Contra scandal nearly bringing down the Reagan presidency, the fairly Contra war was ostensibly sustained until the Sandinistas' 1919 electoral loss. War raged in El Salvador until 1992, when the United Nations broke negotiations reached a settlement. Guatemala did not sign its peace accords until 1996. The Kissinger Commission appealed for greater support for government systematic massacring their own people by warning that and I quote, the insurgency they win will create a totalitarian regime in the image of their sponsors' ideologies and their own, end quote. Looking back, however, it's hard to find more dictatorial regime than those that Kissinger helped to show up. In El Salvador, some 75,000 people were killed during the conflict, with tens of thousands more disappeared. In the 1993 United Nations Truth Commission attributed 95% of this violence to the government and its paramilitaries, and only 5% to the FMLN. The Guatemala Truth Commission found that the war claimed 200,000 lives. 83% of them were the indigenous Mayan people. State forces were responsible for 93% of the violence, as many 40,000 lives were lost in the Contra War in Nicaragua. But where human rights and democracy failed, capitalism flourished. Beginning in the 1980s, the US-backed government in the region forced run deeply unpopular neoliberal reforms, gutted public spending and devalued their currency, raised sales taxes, implemented sweeping deregulation, created dramatic tax incentives for foreign corporations, including the establishment of special tax-free industrial zones for low-wage manufacturing plants or maquiladoras, in exchange for the U.S. aid and international loans. These efforts were particularly acute in El Salvador, where banks, big state energy, and telecommunication companies, major port operations, the pension system, the major public institutions, service were privatized, and in Honduras, which account of its rich natural resources with hydroelectric dams, mining, and monoculture, and eventually pioneered the privatization of entire cities. These processes culminated with the 2006 implementation of the Central American Free Trade Agreement, or the CAFTA. Predictably, the victor has been private, often North American capital. Central America's poor majority has faced displacement, ecological destruction, and miserable working conditions. This economic devastation fed a entire mass migration war pan and escalated security crisis in Central American societies, ravaged as they were by decades, even centuries of exploitation and violence. were further torn apart by shocks of structural adjustment as contemporary administration had grappled with the compound consequence of decades of U.S. intervention in Central America. The bipartisan consensus for militarism and neoliberalization that regularly Spanish Kissinger to achieve has never been stronger. Today, the modern Salvadorian Archbishop Oscar Romero is Saint Oscar Romero, but Kissinger's rule has undergone a sanctification of its own by the U.S. political establishment. Romero's beatification is a simple but significant gesture by the Vatican that placed the United States squarely on the wrong side of history. The veneration Kissinger of the honor shows our determination to learn nothing from it. And now, because the FBI is no longer on my ass, I can stop talking about Harry Kissinger, what the fuck he did to Latin America. I will release a description of the article posted by the Jacobite magazine about all the places in the world in Europe, Cyprus, Southeast Asia, etc. So, guys, next time, and I hope the FBI is not on my ass for real this time, but let's see how it goes.